No campaign is deliberately spreading misinformation in a bid to defeat the referendum. Let's bring in the Liberal Senator and Shadow Minister for Child Protection, Kerryn Little. Now, Kerryn Little, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with Marsha Langton, because the opposition obviously led with this. The Australians reporting on it from the Bunbury Herald. These comments you made, I think, about no campaigners, that they were either racist or stupid. What's your take on that? Not very helpful to the Yes campaign, is it?
Well, I asked the question, who's she talking about? Just because people are asking reasonable questions about this change that's proposed for our constitution, let's remember that we've actually had the writs issued. So we're getting to the pointy end of people really starting to want to understand more of the detail for those who haven't already formed their decision. It's important they are able to ask those questions without feeling like they're being attacked. It's just not okay.
Well, you're an Aboriginal person, and so how do you feel about perhaps being called racist or stupid by Marsha Langton?
Well, I'm disappointed in how the Prime Minister has not just conducted this process to referendum. I think about the most vulnerable within our cohorts, not those people that are protected within our universities and have a job and have a career, but those people that are doing it tough every single day. That's where my mind goes to. And I say, it's unreasonable for them to be surrounded in a topic that's about them, and we hear this kind of language: stupid, racist, and lying. I don't appreciate it as an Indigenous Australian. I've sat in those committees and listened to the evidence, and I listened to some evidence from Marcia Langton herself. And I say, it is completely unreasonable to be conducting a discussion about a change to our constitution in this way.
What's your view of Marcia Langton?
Well, I think Marcia has contributed in the academic field for a number of years, and I know that she worked within the Land Council system for a while. What I would say is I have a very different perspective from her. I haven't worked in that area other than as a lecturer, a casual lecturer. What I've done is I've worked my whole career in areas of economic development and participation in the economy. And when I've had to deliver outcomes, I've had to deliver them, or my job was up for grabs. And so I say, well, of course we're going to come from different perspectives. I'm focused on outcomes, what is in it, who's delivering it, and accountability. That's where I come from.
Well, what's she focused on then?
Well, you can do consultation and you can do consultation, but consultation isn't necessarily consent. And if you're not talking and you're not accepting views that aren't necessarily the same as yours, but you might have the same objective, I don't care which topic you're talking about, it's dangerous. You don't get a great outcome when you don't allow alternate voices to contribute to this discussion. And that's what we've had all along. We've had people who've been asking questions shut down from the very beginning if they did not agree with this proposition.
Do you accept the majority of Aboriginal people want a voice to Parliament?
Absolutely not. The people I speak to, they don't even know, some of them don't even know what this is. Some of them are saying no way. But I tell you which Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people often you see on television and in newspapers talking about this. They are those very people who work for the same organisations that are coming out and saying yes. And if you're working in one of those organisations who gets government funding from the Commonwealth, the state, wherever, or even one of those companies that gets funding from one of those corporates, right? Why would you say no? You'd be pretty brave, or you would be pretty stupid. That's where I would use that word.
There you go. What about this other story today? The Prime Minister was highlighting this Chris Inglis doing online training for no campaigners, saying, don't say you're from the no campaign, sow fear and doubt into people rather than deal with facts. What's your reaction to that story?
Well, I'm a no person. I've been no before I came into Parliament. I will vote no at the ballot box in the privacy of a ballot box, and I'm saying no now publicly. I think people need to inform themselves about the facts. They shouldn't, for the Constitution that belongs to all Australians equally, be voting on a vibe. We don't have the detail. We've even seen in the last day or so, Noel Pearson coming out. We've been resourcing that working group to get together and talk about what this looks like, to share information. And they're still coming out with, well, it's not going to be 2 people. It could be hundreds of people. What on earth have they been doing? And why are we going to a referendum in just over 4 weeks when we don't have the detail? Even Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people don't have the detail.
What about, but you say deal with the facts. So don't deal with fear and doubt. You obviously don't agree with this bloke's approach and what he's saying to the no campaigners, do you?
Well, I think there is enough doubt in this proposition to be saying it's risky. I've sat in the committee where I heard eminent constitutional lawyers not agreeing, as lawyers never do. That's what lawyers are about, right? About risk. But what I did hear was absolutely no compromise in that process for doing anything that actually even recognised some of the things that were raised by those eminent professionals. Lawyers don't agree. You expect that from lawyers.
So what's your view of Peter Dutton's idea of a second referendum?
Well, I think Peter Dutton is actually listening to what Australians want. The Liberal Party has always held the position of recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the Constitution. I think I've heard that loud and clear from people I've been talking to over a very long time. Tick, tick, tick. That's what they wanted. They do not want the voice as part of this proposition.
So you're happy for a second referendum?
Well, I think that's what Australians have been telling us they want. They actually see that as an omission in our Constitution.
Well, Noel Pearson calls it a mirage. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that's the symbolic part of it. That's what people understood when they went there in 2000, when the group was there in 2017. They came out with, in the Constitution only. I would say, well, you know what? Here's a Prime Minister that's going to referendum who's actually said, I'm wholly committed to this. This is so important, not just recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the Constitution, but also voice. And yet he's also come out and said, but if it doesn't pass at referendum because of the tricky way that I've actually put it together and the wording that's been put together, I'm going to abandon those concepts entirely. Well, I think that's really just not listening to the people.
Why has Jacinta Price been reluctant to support the second referendum, do you think?
I'm not sure why she would be, or if she is. I think you'd have to ask her that question.
OK. When I interviewed Richard Marles on Sunday, this goes to what you were saying earlier, and asked him how many people would be on the Voice advisory body and whether they would be chosen or elected, he couldn't tell me. He said Parliament would decide. That's a pretty big problem, isn't it?
Well, it is at the moment when we've just seen the Labor Party put extra people on the JCATSIA, Joint Select Committee on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Affairs. It is stacked with Labor people. You expect to have a majority, but there's even more people that they're putting on there from the Labor Party. I mean...
So you fear that with the Voice? Well,
it's legislation. It's going to go through the Parliament. I think you need people to be able to listen to, if it's legislation, some of the amendments that people might call for in that legislation. I think it's important we deal with what we've got in front of us, and perhaps that's why Jacinta's been a bit cautious about that. We've got a referendum in front of us. That's what we should be focused on.
Do you have some sympathy for those involved in the Yes campaign if it goes down?
Well, sympathy in that I believe that all Australians, including those in the Yes campaign and the No campaign, want to improve the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. What people need to understand is that's what we all want. And the good thing about this process, I think, is the world won't end on the 14th of October at the end of the day when we have a result. But we are all on notice that we can and must do better. And I want to be talking more about the disadvantaged cohort that is sitting within those Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, because I don't need a voice, right? I'm an Aboriginal person who's been employed. Well, I'm a politician, but I've also been an Aboriginal person who's been in employment for a very long time. And I can speak for myself. I know that if I needed help, I would go to my politician and ask. In fact, I get calls all the time from Aboriginal people from all across the country saying, I need your help with this. That's what Voice is about, that they can feel comfortable. And they shouldn't just pick up the phone to an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander politician, because don't forget, we've got 11 here, but they also exist in the states and territories. They should just be able to pick up the phone to any politician, because people should be representing their constituents.
Sure. When I interviewed Peter Dutton a couple of weeks back and asked him what he would do if the Voice went down and he was elected, he said he'd work with state governments on law and order. You're Shadow Child Protection Minister. Is that what you're hoping to do? What other priorities would there be for Aboriginal communities?
Look, I think we have to look very carefully at accountability. We have over 2,500 public servants that work directly in the field of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs. We have another 1,000 organisations, external organisations, that are actually funded by NIAA to deliver programs to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. That's not every single Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander person, but that's a large number of people. It's a large number of dollars. And you have to ask the question, what about accountability? I think we have to get better at the money that goes from the Commonwealth to the states and holding those states accountable. And you know what? We've actually got what's called this National Cabinet. Well, I think they can all do better, and we shouldn't just be looking at the Commonwealth to make improvements.
Shadow Child Protection Minister Karen Little, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.